Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 215. We are, well, if you're listening on the day of release, which I know many of you do, it is Friday, the 11th of October. So we are well into the autumn now, and we're kind of warmer clothes and, indoor training or outdoor training, probably if you're the guest that we're going to be speaking to in a minute. And if you're Pete trains outdoors 52 weeks a year, so he just changes his clothing appropriately for the seasons. So we're getting towards mid-October now, and we've got a great guest with us today who I will introduce you to in a second. But first of all, I'll just touch base with Mr. Peter Lant in Bath. How are you doing, Pete?
I'm very well. It's been ages, James. It's been ages since I've seen you.
This is the new episode, but we recorded the last episode yesterday, so I know you didn't but we're kind of on it.
I'm sick of the sight of you.
We're going to do 3 this week, I think. So
we've got another one in 2 days. Yeah.
Brilliant.
It's funny though you say about the training outdoors. What are we on Tuesday now? Monday. So yesterday when we recorded with Stevie, it basically rained for like 15 hours non-stop, didn't it? Yeah. If everyone remembers that day. If in podcast land, and I couldn't do any pull-ups because I couldn't keep the pull-up bar dry, so I just had to not do them.
Oh well, at least a day off of pull-ups, so that's fine. Okay, and we are joined today. We actually, this was really nice because we spoke to a lady called Alison Young on the podcast twice. Alison Young, who's won like the Tactical Strength Challenge, I think the last 2 times, who got involved in HYROX and HYROX training. And I know that she put us in touch with today's guest because today's guest is very involved in that kind of world. I believe they call it kind of like hybrid fitness and hybrid fitness athletes and coaching and that sort of thing. So Claire, who I'll introduce you to in a second, some programs for running that Alison got involved with. So Alison referred us to Claire. But we are joined today from London in England by Clare Rafferty. How are you doing, Claire?
Hello. Yeah, I'm really good. I was enjoying that intro there. I was like reflecting on the rain. Thanks for that.
It's actually a bit better here today in Essex. I don't know if it's better today in Bath, is it?
Yeah.
And better today in London, probably?
Much better.
Much better.
The other thing is, though, like for Walk Bath, we do Wednesday evening walks, which is the last one is tomorrow, at like end of September. Last one is tomorrow. And I was toying with the idea of doing one tomorrow or not, or just finishing it last week because it's now getting dark. So I decided to do it anyway. It's going to chuck it down for the last one. It's like, oh, thanks.
Well, then you can have a break over the autumn and the winter. Exactly. And excellent. And Claire, can I ask where are you from originally?
So I'm actually from a place called Ayr up in southwest Scotland. If anyone does know that little seaside town.
Well, we had the guest we had on last week. We spoke a lot about Scotland because he's involved in kind of like stone lifting and Highland Games and things up in Scotland. So yeah, last week's episode we spoke a lot about Scotland, and then I obviously sense you've got a Scottish accent as well, which is great. So Claire, I mean, I suppose first of all, can you maybe introduce yourself to us and the listeners? And just tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, I know that, I won't go over everything, but you are kind of like an official Global HYROX Master Team member. You're a HYROX coach. You're a running coach. You're a strength and conditioning coach. I know you're a HYROX coach and athlete as well. And you've kind of been involved in coaching and fitness for a long time. But if you could maybe just tell us a little bit about, I don't know, maybe how you came to fitness, if you were always involved in sport and stuff growing up, and kind of how your career has moved to find you where you are today, if that's all right.
Yeah, of course. So yes, I am, as you said, all of those wonderful titles and qualifications, but that's just titles and qualifications, right? I think for me, I all started, about 11 years ago now. I properly got into fitness. before that, I was at university. So yeah, I played sport, but I was doing an English film and media degree. I was very much in editing and like completely out of the fitness world from that perspective. And I was playing netball, and I was in a good netball team. I was in the first netball team, which meant at the university I was at in Stirling, we were like the number one sports school at the time when I first joined. And as a netball team, we were very much pushed to top end. So we were coming down south. We played teams like Loughborough. So it was very much a competitive sport level from there, but out with that, nothing. And then I got diagnosed with an underactive thyroid. And basically the GP at the time was basically like, you need to get healthy, you need to train more, you need to look after your diet more, you need to do X, Y, and Z if you want to have a sustainable lifestyle. So don't know if anyone that listens does have an underactive thyroid. Like, it's becoming actually pretty common nowadays. I feel like a lot of people have it. Or in the networks I'm in, a lot more people are speaking out about having it. And it is something that a lot of people struggle with. So health and fitness was my gateway to stop gaining weight, to turn my life around. And then from there, it just became a bit of a journey. Like, sadly, I lost my mum in 2013. So exercise was a vehicle to keep going forward. I then got into bodybuilding. That's where the S&C stuff all came from. Was very much a coach for bodybuilding for a very long time. Was competing, doing fitness model for WBFF, which was, if you know of it, I'm sure, there's a whole background there. And then again, sadly, a couple of years later, my dad passed away. So it was like fitness was still like this vehicle for me for like dealing with trauma, dealing with grief, and just coping with everything. And it's always been that way, take myself to the gym and sort out my headspace. And then COVID happened, and I couldn't take myself to the gym and sort out my headspace. So it was like, I've got a pair of kettlebells and a pair of dumbbells at home. What am I going to do? I was living by myself. It was a pretty dark time mentally. And that's when I took up running. And it was just, I took up running. I fell in love with it. I fell out of love with competing and bodybuilding, and was all of a sudden signing myself up for 10Ks, for half marathons, excited to go and do races, finding this whole community element that I didn't really have before. And yeah, 2021, HYROX popped on the scene. I was asked to go and do the first race, and it was like the stars aligned, and everything I believe happens to take you to that moment. And yeah, 2021, I was like, okay, better start learning about running. Let's go get some certifications, because it's time to go.
So you mentioned there the kind of the bodybuilding background, and I think a lot of people initially get into. I mean, we spoke a couple of weeks ago, Pete, didn't we, to Del Wilson, who's kettlebell sport, but he started off in bodybuilding. So I think when people maybe first start to go to a gym, I think it's changing now, but I've been in the industry for sort of 25 years. And back then it was very kind of bodybuilding sort of centric, and you went to the gym and it was all around, and even all the programming was based around bodybuilding. And I still think that's kind of like an entry level that many people go through in terms of strength training and kind of training, I suppose, for the aesthetics and using the machines and body part splits and all that sort of thing. And you obviously had success with that and you enjoyed it for a period, but then you sort of said you fell out of love with that. How did you find the whole kind of competing in bodybuilding and the whole focus on aesthetics above everything else? And I mean, just talk to us a little bit about that, and then maybe how you transitioned into, because I from seeing your stuff, I mean, I have to admit, I probably thought you've been a runner for a long time, and you know, that was your kind of, I didn't actually realize you'd been involved in bodybuilding before. So yeah, maybe can you just explain to us what your experience of bodybuilding was like, and then kind of what caused you to fall out of love with it?
Yeah, I think originally it was, as you're right, it was entry level. So I was teaching group exercise classes. I was very much in the class score environment, and I was like, look, this is fun, but I wanted to look a certain way. I wanted to build muscle mass in my leg. I was so determined I was going to build a set of quads. 11 years down the line, I still don't have a set of quads. Like, that's genetically not meant to grow a pair of quads. I don't care what anyone says, like, it just doesn't matter how much I bulked, it doesn't matter what I was doing. Worked with some of the best coaches, worked with Tom Brazier for a time, for just over a year, and he was absolutely incredible. And like, yeah, I was like, still quads couldn't grow. I think for me, it very much got to like a point where I was so overly obsessed with the food side. The training side was amazing. I loved it. You know, I had a few friends in that space. I am a bit of a like to go in the gym, get my head down and crack on my session by myself. I like the constant data driven side of like, cool, are my measurements here? Where's the, like, I love that numbers side of seeing the progress or seeing the decline. Whether it was a bulk or a shred or whatever it was from that perspective. It was nice to have stats for the progress side. So yeah, it was very entry level at the beginning, and then I got hooked. But then my addictive personality and the controlling every single morsel then very much was heavily made negative by the food side. And tracking macros for me for, you know, I think my longest cut phase was about 10 months. And it was long. It was really long. It was probably too long, but it was the shows I wanted to do. And it was, you know, you learn from these things. And after that, I was in a really bad mental health space with food. And I started binge eating. So I was just in a bit of a yo-yo cycle, like trying to keep the aesthetic, trying to do what it took, but then constantly starving. And, you know, it took me about 18 months to maybe actually regulate my hunger again after that massive cut. And it was at that point that COVID happened. So it kind of was almost like, okay, you've finally got your food together. You're finally back in control. Now it's time to decide, like, do we want to do this again? Are we going to put ourselves back into that space of going on another cut? And then, yeah, as I said, 2020, and it was like, okay, well, everything's on hold now anyway. So you're not going to diet. You're not going to shred during this time. And yeah, I think the decision was kind of made for me. It was a natural exit process. Yeah.
It's nice to hear, and I hope you don't mind me, I didn't mind me asking that, but that's really nice to hear that insight from you, because I follow you obviously on Instagram and things, and that's what I really like is that you are very real. Do you know what I mean? You're and a lot of the influencers that I'm not categorizing you as an influencer, you know, I mean, I say, but a lot of the, you know, these kind of the Gymshark, the influencers, they all look a certain way, you know, and it's all very heavily on the aesthetic, and it's all heavily polished and airbrushed, and, you know, it's just, and I think that, I mean, I'm in my late 40s now, so I'm not so worried about myself, but I've got 2 young children. But you see a lot of maybe teenagers and things who see these kind of influencers, and they maybe think that this is the way, this is normal, you know, this is how everyone should look, or this is, you know, so that's why I just wanted to ask about the change from bodybuilding. So then when you got...
I was going to say though as well, because we had, it's like what James has just been saying about that, we had Matt Shaw on, who... same age as me, isn't he? He's like a year older than me. So he's like late 40s, probably nearly 50. Has he just turned 50? Anyway, he's like, when he was 47 or 48, he decided to get shredded and he hated it. And he's been in the industry a long time, and he's done powerlifting and all sorts. And he's like an endurance mountain guy and all that sort of stuff. And he decided to get shredded, and he said he absolutely hated it. But he saw it through to the end, and he's like, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. And what James has just said there, I think, is really interesting, because that's most people's kind of, like you said, entry level. Most people's entry level into it is to try and look a certain way, isn't it? And then when you realize what actually goes into that, it's very few people. I mean, some people do love it and stay like that the whole time and enjoy it, but that is like a very, very, very small percentage of people. And it's just interesting to hear that's where you went as well, because I didn't go down that route, but I was like, right, I want a 6-pack and all that. And now I don't give a toss. I don't care. I wanted quads as well, and I couldn't get them. But I have got good calves, and people hate that. I don't do anything for my calves, and yeah.
But you walk, right? Yeah, but you walk up and down hills and mountains every day.
I've always had big calves, though. Seriously, always.
Yeah. Okay, so going from something that was very aesthetic. That is the point of it, I suppose, bodybuilding and certainly competing and standing on stage and things. Then we move into something that's obviously running, which is one of the most natural, fundamental things that a human being can do. Had you ever, when you started running around the kind of time of lockdowns, the gyms had shut and things, what was your running level like, or how were you at running when you first started? I mean, you played netball, but that's kind of like short shuttles, isn't it, here and there? I mean, how did you find running when you first took to it?
Oh, honestly, I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I was that guy that, every Christmas at uni or whatever, I would go home for Christmas and I would try and run a 5K, or I was like trying to keep fit on my off season, and that total university, whatever you want to call it. And I hated it. I absolutely hated it. Our coach, as I said, I was at uni, I was at quite a top level. We would always have 7 a.m. training, and it'd be requirements to go out and do runs and stuff. And I'd make every excuse in the planet not to go. And that was at like 19, 20. I wasn't even a kid at the time. I was like playing at a decent level and just like, it's not for me. Even in Australia, I went there for 6 months, did a bit of a study abroad. Again, couldn't get into running. Like my housemates and stuff were like, just come out. And I was like, nah, not doing it. And I swear I was forced into that situation. Something clicked in 2020. And I was like, if I don't get out there and run, like I'm in trouble. Like I just need to do something to release all this pent up energy that I've got inside. Yeah, I was shocking at the start. Absolutely shocking. I was like stitched the whole way, shin splints. I was running in Reebok Nanos. Like
Yeah.
it was an experience. Big up to Reebok Nanos and that. Not a running shoe.
It's we had a guy at the Irish Physio on the other week, who's his Aidan O'Flaherty, and he's based in Putney, and he does a lot of work with runners internationally and all over and all over to a high level, and everyday people who run, and all the kind of things that you just mentioned, the stitch, the shin splints, the kind of the overuse injury, all these kind of things we were talking about quite a lot with him. So I know that now you promote a lot of, low intensity, steady state kind of runs, build the aerobic base, that kind of thing. When you first started yourself going out and running, though, did you do the typical thing that everybody does and just go out and try and run too fast and do too much, build up too quickly?
Try and win at running every time you go out. I'm going to win park run.
Yeah.
You beat your 10K every week. That was the goal. Every week. Can I get faster? Can I get faster? I got really fast. I did. Well, really fast by my standard.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know it was actually around the same time. So that was like the start of 2020. I then met my partner in later 2020. We've kind of officially got together in the December, and she's been a running gait analysis, worked in the jog shop since she was 13. So she's the opposite end of the spectrum. Like I was out here like going for survival, and she took one look at me, and it was the first time we were during that lockdown phase, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna run to where you live. And I think the run itself was like, it was like a 15K run, and she was like, oh, are you, like, you're just gonna run over? Cool, on you go. And then I got lost, and I ended up running like a half marathon to try and find, and it was snowing, and it was just like everything that could have ever went wrong on a run and like experience of a human being in person, it just all went. But it was that day that I was like, okay, this is a bit of me. Like this is a bit of me. Like if I can get out there and run 21K in the snow just for bants, like I need to lean into this. I need to lean into this.
And then when did you become, so I think I might be wrong, but Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you've been like a running coach for about 4 years now. Is that correct? So that's when, so when did you decide, is that around the time then when you did this 21K, you decided, right, I'm going to kind of learn more about this and learn how to do it properly and qualify yourself and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I went fully head on into it. Like before that, I was that guy that, and it's no disrespect to group exercise coaches out there, because I am a group exercise coach, but I was coaching treadmill classes and I had no interest in running. Like you're part of an environment, it's part of the certification, it's part of being employed on a system, and I would do it because it was the expectation. So I had a base knowledge, but it was an absolute base knowledge. Like I was S&C through and through. So it was at that kind of time I was like, it's my responsibility to do this, to be better, because there's a lot of a lot of things I'm enjoying and doing, and I need to be the best coach for myself. So yeah, it was pretty much the end of 2020. And yeah, I started off with Emma, like literally just got her to sit down and take me through literal lecture sessions, like, you know, everything from biomechanics, and then yeah, started diving in from there. Super fortunate, like, you know, the company that I coach at, Third Space, they give us good access to a lot of performance coaches and access to a lot of different courses as well. So I'm very lucky that I've been able to get easy access to stuff. So yeah, it was just a dive in head first, learn as much as you can, and then practice as much as you can, and let's see where we end up.
Yeah. So Third Space, how long have you been at Third Space for in London?
2018, so that's what,
Okay.
6 years.
6 years. Yeah, yeah. And what's that like? How much work do you still do there now? Are you still quite involved there now, or do you do less now?
Yeah, a lot less now. And that's originally when I first started with them, I was cycle queen, body pump queen, on the beat, teaching all the strength classes, the lifts, you know, that side. I was like S&C, and sparkle of exercise to music. And then again, since that shift in 2020, now all my classes are HYROX, they're all treads. I do a couple of the like strongman stuff. And yeah, that's the complete niche I'm in now. It's like just went full, everything's changed, you know, from the school at the start to now. And yeah, I'm still there currently doing still about 17 classes a week, but I'm dropping down a significant amount in the next few weeks, just with the HYROX season starting. So yeah.
So let's talk then. Let's move into HYROX. I was looking earlier, and like I say, because I've been around for a while and see things sort of come and go. But I was looking at it because it's just sort of out of interest to have a look. Because I remember when I first sort of started my gym years ago, there wasn't CrossFit didn't exist back then anyway. And I looked, and the first CrossFit Games was like 2007. So that's been going for what's that? 17 years, something like that.
Yeah.
It's about that. And then the first Spartan race, because these were all the kind of things that I kind of thought about, was 2010. And the first HYROX was 2017. And I suppose, first of all, before we go into it, do you want to just explain to people what HYROX is? And I also found out, because I was researching this, I thought, do you know where the name HYROX comes from?
Do you know, I've had this question before. I can't actually remember the answer. I think I heard it on someone else's podcast.
Yeah, no, the reason I say, because I was thinking it's got to stand for something, and I only looked at this morning, so it's not, I wasn't testing, I just...
No, but I have heard something.
Because it said it doesn't actually stand for anything, but the guys who came up with it were on a night out, and it's a combination of hybrid Rockstar.
I mean, if you knew the people in the company, that completely makes sense.
Yeah, it's a hybrid Rockstar. Yeah, so
yeah.
I thought that was really cool, actually. I thought, oh, HYROX. Yeah. So I mean, before we go down to, like I say, we were having a conversation yesterday with Stevie about all the stuff in Scotland, and we said sometimes you can have a conversation. And I haven't used it yet today, but I've got this. This is called the acronym HAMMER. So if we talk about anything that I need explaining, I'll hold it up. But yeah, so HYROX, what is HYROX? Just for people who are listening who may not know what it is. I mean, I'm sure most people have heard of it now.
Yeah.
Because say everyone's talking about it, but what actually is a HYROX event?
Yeah, so ultimately it's an endurance race is the kind of main term for it. It's within that hybrid fitness space that I think that's the word that I always forget Alex's last name, but Alex has obviously came up with this hybrid term and now everyone's running with it. And basically it's 8 1-kilometer runs. So that's where the initial kind of running element is going to come from. And then 8 stations, which are a combination of strength, combination of skill, putting that technique in practice. So you've got, you know, stuff from ski erg and rower machine, which require that kind of technique efficiency, to burpees, which is really going to start to bring in that mental resilience and that mental tolerance for high volume burpees, alongside lunges, some farmer's carry to bring in a bit of strength. And then they've got the sled push and pull, which is very much your strength elements. And then obviously that high volume wall ball at the end, which is very much a high volume wall ball, which can people apart in so many different ways, and
Yeah.
it's probably one of the most challenging things you see at the end of a workout. So yeah, it's just about, you know, challenging the body's different energy system from that perspective, and that it very much, yeah, is within that endurance realm.
Yeah. And it first, I think it first started in Germany, did it? Is that where it's from? Yeah. And now
Yes.
it's like literally all over the world. Like we mentioned, we spoke to people in America who compete in it, obviously all over Europe. Probably, is it in Australia and New Zealand as well?
It's
Yeah.
literally, I think yesterday they announced New Zealand, Australia. We've done the four kind of main cities, so to speak. We had the
Yeah.
last one in Perth last weekend.
Yeah.
And yeah, they've announced New Zealand yesterday. You know, world majors in Hong Kong. It's
Yeah.
insane. It really is insane. It's growing so quickly.
So, I mean, so how did you obviously you said you joined, you know, you were a participant in the first one,
Yeah.
but the first HYROX, and was that in Germany? Was that the one in? Was that in?
No, so they came to the UK
Right.
2021, and they basically wanted to, it was again fresh out of lockdown, they wanted to just get themselves on the map, I suppose. So they invited a lot of people who are within the kind of space. So at the time, one of my friends was working with Under Armour, was very much within the women's running fitness space. So she was asked to come.
Mm.
And needed a partner. And of course, I became that partner, apparently, because I was into running and fitness, and that was apparently who I was becoming at that time. So, yeah, went along. We had, God, when I think about the race then to what the race is now, it's insane how different it is. But it was a lot of fun, and I literally knew in that first race, I left it, and I was like, yeah, I'm officially like done with bodybuilding. I'm letting go of all my clients. I'm going into HYROX. Like I pretty much walked out that arena and was like, this is it.
And what was it that spoke to you so much, or that you know, where you knew that that was for you? What was it? I don't know if you can probably sum it up, but
Yeah.
what was it about that event that made you have this big epiphany and this big change?
It's gonna sound like cringe, but if I actually think about it, when you do something like bodybuilding, right, you can see your direct competitors up on that stage. You are literally being judged. You are doing your quarter turns, you are doing your routines, and you're physically being judged there and then. You can see, you know, what everyone else looks like. Whereas when you're in that event space, you've no idea where you are. You could be first, you could be last, but you really don't have any idea. And I think it was that side for me that like I left and I still felt like a winner. And as someone who hasn't had a huge sporting background, and you know, I was never really good at team sports apart from netball. I was, you know, I've never been an individual sport person, but this was something that I was like, actually, I can do by myself. I can do as a team, and no one's going to really know where I am. Like I can blend in if I like, and I can still finish it. And if I want to get better at it, I can set goals, and like the bodybuilding side, that data driven, I can see where the improvements can come from. But you know, at the end of the day, I'm not being judged directly on my performance in that moment.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, because I think I was thinking about this earlier today, like because all a lot of the kind of trends, I suppose, and I'm not saying HYROX is, I think it's going to be around for a long while, but I'm just saying they're kind of, as these things come in, like, because I remember when kind of maybe triathlon, maybe 20, 25 years ago was a big thing, you know, like lots of people were doing like triathlon became really big. And obviously running has always been there, you know, like marathons, half marathons, 10Ks, 5Ks. But then there was this whole kind of obstacle course race with like Tough Mudder and Rat Race and all that, that was maybe like more like 20 years ago. And then Spartan Race, like I said. But I think with HYROX, one of the things that's really different, isn't it, is that it's, I suppose this what I want to ask about is this really, that it's the same every event you go to. It's exactly the same. So I know a lot of kind of, if you like, serious trainers and S&C people don't like CrossFit very much. They see it as a lot of random stuff that is just, it's random. But whereas HYROX, like you say, you can really, you train for the specific event, and like any sporting event, it's the same all the time. So you can really gauge that improvement and train specifically for the events. Do you see, are you involved in, so you're obviously quite involved in it now, but do you see, is it going to evolve slightly? Because I know I saw one of your posts the other week and they're slightly tweaking some, they've changed the amount of wall balls that women have to do. And they're kind of slightly tweaking things, but do you see that it is going to always stay very similar, or is there going to be a kind of evolution of it as it goes forward, do you think?
Yeah. I mean, it is very much, I think, in my opinion, at this time, because like, as it is, this it's a sport, right? And as HYROX is concerned, it's a sport. Therefore, a marathon will never change because a marathon is a marathon. And a HYROX will always be a HYROX because that's the sport. Now, whether they turn around though and they say, we've got a triathlon as a triathlon, but you can have a sprint triathlon, you can have an Olympic distance, you can have a T100, whatever the differences are. I mean, I think they'd be fools not to tap into, we see some of the Go Ruck ones now out in the States. It's massive out there already, them loving this idea of wearing a weighted vest to do a HYROX. I mean, why you'd want to make it harder is, again, out with the realms of my mind, but it is what it is. So I think they would be foolish not to do half HYROXes or do double HYROXes and make it a bigger event. But it would definitely be its own thing within the sport if they get there, for sure. Because
Pete, you're going to say so.
It's human nature, isn't it? Like Stevie was talking about this yesterday with the stone lifting, and like you pick it up and put it on a thing, and then people are like, no, I want to pick it up and put it above my head, and I want to put it on my shoulder, I want to carry it, and all of that with the Dinny stones and everything. And it happened with CrossFit. It's happened like you were saying, like triathlons turned into Ironmen, didn't they, and all that sort of stuff. And then now people do Deca Ironman and all that, and it's like, and then you get Sean Conway who goes and does 105 of them or whatever. But like it's like anything, and I was thinking that with HYROX because like and even talking to Dell about kettlebell sport. It was traditionally a 10-minute set, and then you get half marathons and all of this sort of stuff. And even in parkrun as well, people are doing parkrun tours and alphabet. And apparently there's a thing in parkrun where you've got to do a parkrun every day of the year, but like they're only on a Saturday. So it takes you like 10 years to hit every single day because it has to be on a Saturday, right? Now is like, we've worked it out and it's like 10 years or something like that. So there's some ideas for you anyway, but that's human nature, isn't it? And so it'll be interesting to see where it goes, because if it's already, we already like 7 years in or something, it's still just the beginning, isn't it? Because it's becoming very popular very quickly. I mean, we say quickly, it's taken 7 years to get to where it is, but it's exploded. And then this is where people will take their own thing with it, won't they? And make it their own and start doing doubles and triples and weighted vests and stuff like that. So are you going to get involved in all that? Are you going to start to evolve with it, do you think?
I mean, I'll stick with my normal HYROX. I'm that guy. I'm like, if there was a shorter race, I'd probably be in it. Right? I'd be in it. I did my 70.3 this year, and it was, I don't even know how long. It was like 6.5, 7 hours of my life I'm never getting back, and it was a thrill at the time, but I was so underprepared. I was fit enough and followed the training plan, but I was so underprepared. And I'm just like, the thought of doing long events is just trying to get my mind set for Chicago Marathon in a couple of weeks. I'm like, it's just too long. Anything over an hour is just too long.
So is that going to be you mentioned Chicago there in a couple of weeks? Is that going to be your first full marathon that you would have done? Yeah. But at the moment though, so you were out as well, weren't you, a couple of weeks ago in Club La Santa? I saw doing like, that was a HYROX kind of residential training camp / holiday that you did. That looked amazing. Yeah. Well, how did that come out? Was that something you organized yourself, or was that something for HYROX?
Yeah, so basically, Club La Santa is part of the Spanish HYROX, obviously, affiliation. So Club La Santa has a chain that works out there, and then they have a UK chain. So my partner and I have connected with the UK chain, so it's called Sports Tours. And basically, they're the guys that provide the kind of race entry into like the world majors for marathons. And they've got a few other kind of things under their belt. And Club La Santa is one of their biggest things for running camps, and obviously they've been very much in the running space and in the triathlon space, and they were just trying to like break into HYROX. So they reached out to us last year and asked us to go out and just have a look at the space. and, you know, be like, what could you do for HYROX? So we went out and had some fun for, I think, 10 days, put together some ideas how they could make their facility work for something like HYROX. And then, yeah, the goal was to take a team over and basically use the space, which is what we did last week. And yeah, the space is incredible. Like, it's, you know, if people want to go and do a bit of HYROX, but, you know, they are still focusing on weightlifting, or they want to go and do mountain bike riding, or there's so many other things you can do at La Santa. And yeah, they've just hit the nail on the head with that little HYROX cherry on top. So yeah, I'll be excited to see how they now grow off the back of it, and getting more athletes that are in the triathlon space to now attend HYROX and bridge that gap a little bit more.
It did look brilliant, because I mean, it's obviously out, is it it's Lanzarote, is that right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got the clear blue sky, and you're all outside on the running tracks and the turfs, and yeah, it just looked like a gorgeous place to train. Yeah, that's incredible. And I think the thing with HYROX that we spoke about this before, haven't we, Pete? The kind of the strength events that you've got in there, they're kind of low skill, low danger, kind of low barrier to entry kind of movements, aren't they? That obviously you can train and get very, very good at, but it's not like, you know, your Olympic barbell snatching a weight overhead when you're tired and all the rest of it. You know, you're going to get fatigued. But something like a farmer's walk, the worst that's going to happen is you're going to drop the kettlebells, I presume, you know, or something. I mean, I've never actually tried the wall ball thing, but I can imagine that does look pretty horrible at the end. Yeah, Pete's shaking his head.
I've done wall ball like once or twice in my life, and it looks all right. Yeah, but it's horrible. Like you said, wall ball is. You were trying to think of a way to describe it. It's just wall ball. There's no other way to describe. It's just horrible.
It's so repetitive. It's so like, if you think about any like a basic movement pattern, right? When you're doing a movement pattern that is in one spot, non-stop, like the seam's not changing, nothing's changing. You've got no support around you. It's just squat and push and squat and push. And it's mind-numbingly simple, but mind-numbingly hard.
It's what gets it with me. I liken it to, like, so I do a lot of walking, and it'll be the same as running as well, I suppose. Like if you walk along a canal towpath for 20 miles, you just get tired, bored, your hips get sore and all that, because you want a bit of up and down. You know, I like walking up and down hills because, like, it just changes it all. But like, yeah, so wall ball is a bit like that, isn't it? It's like walking a 20 mile along a flat towpath, tarmac, with like just flat, like walking across Norfolk. I'm going to piss the people off in Norfolk now, aren't I? But walking across Norfolk where it's just flat and you can't, like, you know, it's just fields and sea.
Well, every second something's crushing your chest.
Yeah, exactly.
Every second you're losing your breath because you can't breathe properly.
Because there you go, we've just described it for you.
Because we do quite a lot of kind of kettlebell snatches and things, which is all in one place, you know, doing these snatches, but it's not the same. Because I did put a wall ball target and bought some wall balls, because as I say, I got people in the gym who are now doing HYROX and those sort of things. But I don't know, I may have thrown the ball up there once. I don't know.
When you say you got the lines, did Steph paint the lines?
Oh no, they're like it's a proper like
okay.
So right. You just stuck up, you know, on the wall. Yeah.
Just because I know James talks about this, because he was talking about his Atlas stones yesterday, and then I saw something on Facebook yesterday, and Steph was like, "I get all the great jobs, so she's the one washing them and sealing them." Yeah. James gets all the glory, right? And she does all the work.
I washed the stones, and she's going to be sealing them this week.
She's got a good bit.
Yeah, that's one of the jobs.
That's the exciting bit.
Yeah. So, in terms of how your involvement within HYROX now, so you're obviously in the first event that they held in the UK, and now you're part of, like I mentioned, the official Global HYROX kind of master team, in terms of that. So, are you're obviously involved in HYROX, and I know you do race direct. You know, you're kind of race director for them and stuff as well. So, how did you actually get from just joining in on that first one to then being involved in HYROX as a company, as an event? How did that happen?
Yeah, do you know, it's all been a pretty like natural process, because I get a lot of questions now, people seeing obviously the roles and positions I'm in, they're like, cool, how can I do it? And it is just as simple as like showing up. and being part of the races and being involved and, you know, showing an interest. I think from day one, I've always kind of put myself out there. Like I said, I was part of Third Space, who were one of the kind of first gyms in London to really be like, you know, we want to be an affiliate, we want to start running HYROX simulations. And I was very much a big supporter of that at the beginning. So I suppose that got me connected with the HYROX people way back when it was first, you know, coming out, and they were still going around every single gym and meeting people and running the PFT tests and very much making relationships early on. So I was in the right place at the right time back then. And then just the way that their team developed and the skill set that I have, they were like, you know, oh, can you come and do an MCing event? And I went and I was on the mic in Glasgow because it was my hometown, and it was like, yeah, let's, you know, put a Scottish girl on the mic. Had a great weekend. It was a lot of fun. So then just kept in with them, and I think it's just been that shown willingness that's got me to the race director first of all, which has been a great journey this last, you know, started that last November, and had so many experiences of traveling, and just it's been incredible, absolutely incredible, the things you get to learn behind the scenes, and they stay behind the scenes for a reason. And then, you know, the insider stuff you get to learn, and then from there it was like, okay, right, you know, you're a coach, you're in the space, I'm doing everything I can in that rock zone when I'm race director to help and support people, and just constantly trying to spread word in the community, London, Glasgow, and get it out there. And I think it was just that, you know, the team was like, you know, if we're going to have a new master trainer this season, and start to grow this master team, like, we want you on it. And I was like, cool, like, let's go. So yeah, it's been a very natural process, but showing up has helped.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. You have to sort of put yourself out there, don't you? And meet people. And just like you say, it's Pete and I do various things now from, you know, just from people we've met in on the podcast, you know, and sometimes it's just making those relationships and just offering to lend a hand. And, you know, you never know where it's going to end up, which is fantastic. So what would you say now then, Claire, what is the percentage of your work, I suppose, that's associated to HYROX? Is it like nearly everything, and even the running coaching that you do is kind of guided towards improving people's HYROX times? Are you kind of all in with it? Is that what you say now?
Yeah, pretty much all in. I have to say pretty much. No, I am all in on it. I'm not even going to pretend. I think I've got any clients that I've got that are doing 10Ks or half marathons, they've all now got HYROXes booked. Like, it's a contagious place because I'm not a triathlon coach, and I'm not a marathon coach, and I'm not really a half marathon coach either to push it that way. Like, that's what my partner does. So she very much has all the half marathon and the marathon clients. And then I've got the kind of lower end runners, people that are interested in shock HYROX because it's an easy entry into running as well. And so, yeah, it's just really organically happened. I'm trying to think if there's anything I'm doing now, you know, everything at National Running Show. If I go there, I'm still speaking on purely running, I suppose. I'm not speaking on HYROX, but yeah, that's like once a year. Everything else is, it's locked in now.
Yeah.
It's all things HYROX moving forward.
And just before we about 10 minutes left before we wrap up, I want to ask, because lots of people, like I say, there's a number of people at my gym, there's loads of people that we've spoke to recently on here, and I know there'll be lots of people listening who either have done a HYROX, are thinking about doing one, maybe have one booked, or maybe after listening to this might think about trying one. What are your, I suppose, I don't know, you probably can, but if there's some top sort of tips or top mistakes, I suppose that's a better way to put it, because when we had Aidan on, who was the running physio, kind of the common mistakes or common injuries people have, you know, when they start running. I mean, what are the most common mistakes that you see people making if they just decide, right, I'm going to sign up for a HYROX and I'm going to do it, and they just do it on their own or try and go it on their own, and use their own logic or instinct or whatever? What are the common problems that you see with people training for HYROX?
I think it's a very interesting one, because I made a post about this a few weeks ago, and it was actually really well received. And I was like, the main problem with HYROX is you love HYROX, and the it's tongue in cheek, yeah, but the problem with that is people are doing HYROX all the time. And if we think about it from like a strength movement perspective, they are doing high volume wall balls all the time. They're doing high volume burpees all the time. Maybe they're doing sled push and sled pull, fine, but they're constantly doing 1K runs into a heavy sled. And then they wonder why their Achilles are grumbling or their calves are grumbling. And you're like, it's that constant repetition of the same movement patterns all the time that we're seeing. And people aren't taking the time to say, well, hang on, if I'm constantly doing 200 burpees a week, am I actually doing some strength for my chest, for my triceps? Am I actually working on my rotators? Am I taking the time to isolate the exercises? People are saying, I need to get good at running, so I better start running fast. They're new to running, they're running fast all the time. So what's then happening? Their hamstrings are blowing up. Their calves are blowing up. People are getting shin splints that they don't understand why they're getting shin splints. It's like, oh, what's happened here? And it's just that too much volume too soon for most people. At that, I need to be doing HYROX, therefore the intensity needs to be up here. And actually, I think because it's so new, the biggest message that I want to push this in this kind of like global master role is that see it as a sport. Look at it the same way that you would look at doing a marathon. Look at it the same way you would look at doing a triathlon. Think about how you build to that race day. Are you going to go and do an Ironman 3 times a year as an everyday person? Probably not, right? Probably, I'd hope not, you know? And it's really trying to like break down those principles of exercise and principles of training enough so that we can get people to see it as a sport rather than this workout we just need to get better at all the time by doing the workout all the time.
It's interesting because there's a lot of this high intensity mindset or promotion, which really I think I see it as really it's been, well, I suppose it's since that phrase, you know, since the hit, you know, the high intensity interval training probably about 10 years ago, I think was kind of popularized. And then you've got things like, you know, F45 and things where every workout is high intensity, you know, and it's like you're doing 10 sessions a week and they're all high intensity. And I think that, like you say, seeing it as a sport and training for the sport, and just like a 90-minute football match, if soccer's your thing or whatever, is something you might do once a week, but all the training leads up to that, you know, that, and these are they're athletes anyway. You're not going and playing a 90-minute football match every time you go training. So I think that's so important. I mean, we speak to a lot of people in that maybe the strongman world and things, and a lot of the training there is it's your bread and butter: deadlifts, bench, squat, overhead press, accessory movements, and then maybe once a week they'll train events training, but the strength is really built doing the boring stuff, the background work, isn't it? And then it's when you display that strength when they actually go into events and competitions. And I suppose it's the same with HYROX. You know, you want to build the machine, build the aerobic base, build the movement competency, all of that sort of stuff. And then when you go to do your HYROX, that's when you kind of leave it all out there and go. But I suppose, yeah, like you say, there's that temptation because people love that feeling of getting sweaty and the endorphins and they want that too much, don't they? I suppose, you know, it's
I don't.
said, nor do I don't want that. I'm just empathizing. But
I don't do getting sweaty. It's not for me. But that's where it's really good with the with what we were talking about earlier with the shorter events, and then, like, you know, naturally building up the longer events and all that. People, there's like a different entry level for different people, like sprint triathlons and Olympic ones and all of this sort of stuff. You know, because you do get people who go, you know, I need to start running, I need to lose some weight or whatever. I know I'll put myself in for a marathon. It's like, why don't you do park run or do couch to 5K
yeah.
and then do a marathon in like 3 or 4 years time or whatever, you know, because people always think they're against the clock in terms of age as well, don't they?
Yeah.
You know, and I used to even think that at like 30 years old. It's like, well, I'm against the clock. It's like, no, don't worry about it. You know what I mean? So I think those, like, the way it naturally seems to be going is great because you can have like a sprint level entry thing for people who are just getting started and then just dip their toe in and see what it's like and then move from there, you know?
And can people can also do like the partner one, can't they? Where they all do they all do the running together, but then they share the strength events. Is that right?
Yeah, and that's where the entry level for us is the relay. So, I mean, the relay is the entry level, but the relay is also a very different sport if you actually look at the physiology of it. Because the relay, I don't know how much you guys know about it, but it's basically a 1 kilometer run and then one of the stations, and then you change. So a relay is up to 4 people. And then obviously when there's 4 people, there's 8 runs, 8 stations. That means you do 2 each. So with that kind of logic in mind, you're basically going all out on a 1 kilometer run, all out on a 1K ski, and then, you know, you're going to rest for 10, 20 minutes. So you can really afford to go real hard full send. But then the other side of that is it's the perfect entry level for people that are like, do you know what? I've not built to my couch to 5K yet, but I want to try HYROX to see if I can motivate myself to stick with this plan and keep going. So here, let's go and get them to do the 1K run into the sled push and get them to do the 1K run into the farmer's carry. And you can bring someone brand new into a team and get them to run and do a strength element, and just introduce them to something new and a new way of training, right? And that's the beauty of it at the 2 different ends of the spectrum.
Oh, this is great. Yeah, go on. Sorry,
you can also do different age categories, because we had Travis on, didn't we? Travis Howells, who did the Snowdon relay, but he just
yeah.
He's what, like 22 or something, but his partner was like a
35 or
45-year-old bloke, wasn't it? So they were in like 2 different age groups as well, but they were competing together. So it's like, it's just hugely inclusive, isn't it? It's brilliant. I love it. I mean, I don't do it, but like, I love the idea of it. Like, no, but like anybody can get involved with anybody else as well, like men and women, you know, different age groups, or
we had
fathers and sons, or mums and sons, and all that sort of stuff. Would be amazing.
We had Mark Lewis on as well, didn't we?
Yes,
he does a lot of HYROX, doesn't he, with his other half as well? Now,
yeah,
I think. Yeah,
it's brilliant.
Yeah. Brilliant. So Claire, if people, I mean, it's been great, and I know you've got this appointment to go to in a bit. So if people want to find out more about you and find out more about, you know, follow your training, but also maybe have a look at the programs that you've got that are specifically tailored towards. So I've obviously had a look on your programs you offer and things for HYROX and running for HYROX and all that sort of thing. What's the best platform? I mean, what are you most active on? Is it Instagram?
Yeah, most active on Instagram. I live on Instagram. I think I live on Instagram. That's my third home.
So I was going to say, so that's at Clare, and it's CLARE _ Rafferty, RAFFERTY _ yeah.
That's me.
At Clare Rafferty on there. And I was going to ask, actually, you mentioned your you know, your kind of degree and your film and all the rest of it. Do you do your own videos and stuff on Instagram?
Yeah.
They're really good, aren't they? So you use your kind of editing and your...
Who knew back then? Like, see, when I was doing that degree back in, I don't know, you pick a degree, you go to university, you don't really know what you're doing with your life. And at the time I was like, I'm never going to use this. I'm absolutely, like, there was no concept. I couldn't see the future. There was no concept in my brain of when I was ever going to do it. But here we are now. I've got the official CapCut on the desktop. I'm back in doing my editing. It's a flashback to 2010.
Yeah, they're really good. The video, yes, I'd highly recommend. I mean, even if you're not, if you are interested in HYROX or learning more, then definitely follow Claire. But even if you're just someone who's interested in health and fitness, and if you're listening to this podcast, you will be, do follow Claire, because the content she puts out and the you know, the style of it and the look of it, and like I say, it's very, very real as well. You know, it's very real. It's very inclusive. It's very sensible. You know, it's not stupid. It's great to see. So I'd highly recommend you give Claire a follow. And especially, you know, if you're interested in HYROX, then check out, she's got like a link tree on there with programs and stuff like that, that you can go and have a look at. Well, thank you so much, Claire, for joining us. I'm really glad we managed, because we had Stevie on, and I said at the start, I said, this was meant to be Claire. I said, but if you're watching on YouTube, don't worry, this is Stevie, because he's got really long hair. He's like a rock and roll drummer, isn't he?
And he's also 61.
Yeah. I said, this isn't Claire. She'll be on next time. You know.
It's like, oh gosh, honestly,
you look different to your Instagram Pikachu.
Yeah, yeah. I was in no way to hold a conversation last week. It was troublesome, but we're good. We're back again. We're fine. Injuries in the past.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on everything, and I really hope that that you sort things out, and Chicago, you're okay for Chicago in a couple of weeks. And yeah, I mean, it'd be great. Maybe, I don't know, a year down the line, we'll catch up again. Maybe see where HYROX is going, because it really does seem, like I say, they're making some small change, tweaks and things. But I love, the additions potentially of more categories and different ways of, shrinking or expanding HYROX, to accommodate more and more people. I think it's a fantastic thing. So yeah, thanks so much, Claire, for joining us.
Cheers, guys. It's been great. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, all of you, for listening. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you're watching or listening on a platform that allows you to do so. And if you can, leave us reviews on Apple Podcasts. That's what we're really after. If you leave a review on there, we'll read it out on air, and we will give you some free merch, either hoodies, t-shirts, that sort of thing. We will be back next week for episode 216. I think we were saying maybe Pete and I might just have a bit of a catch up next week, because we've had about the last 6 weeks with guests, and we need to kind of maybe consolidate some thoughts on all these great people we've been talking to and things. So we'll be back next week. We may have a guest, but I would imagine it's just going to be Pete and myself talking about all the things we've learned over the last few weeks. So until next week, thank you, Claire. And thank you, Pete. They're both nodded. Okay. and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com, or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.